Good morning. I know that 8:30 is a little bit early for learning sessions, but I think we're all educators and we can be happy with an 8:30 a.m. session as well. So this session is primarily based off the Student Quest report, which got released yesterday at the opening plenary. It's an annual report that comes out from the IC3 Institute, and it is a global survey that takes place trying to encapsulate the opportunities and challenges that counselors and students face on a year-to-year basis. Um, so the way we'll sort of go about it is I'll just give you an introduction. We'll also discuss the purpose. We'll discuss a little bit on the methodology of the report as well. And then we'll eventually go into the meat of the presentation, which is going to be the findings and the conclusions and the recommendations, which you can possibly take back to your school. If you're a leader, if you're a counselor, you can take back into your practice. And if you're a university representative, then into your practice while trying to guide students to apply for your colleges or universities. Um, so, like I said, it's a first of its kind in the sense that it's a global survey that and IC3 conducts on a year-to-year basis. Um, we the purpose of the Student Quest report is to align it with the conference theme. This year's conference theme is from competition to competence. So we tried to not keep it very direct, but we also had an opportunity to include something which is very important, which we think is actively revolutionizing not just education, but every sector that exists, which is artificial intelligence. So we firstly wanted to understand the impact of artificial intelligence, but in terms of um, technological competency that counselors and students are developing as these tools come out and as they are using them on a day-to-day basis for various purposes. We also wanted to understand student values. Student values are, well, supremely important because when we do ask students about whether they make university or career decisions based off of their personal values or in terms of the economic opportunity a particular university or a particular career provides, they choose both. And they do base it on the fact that personal values actually helps them stay in a career or a university for a long period of time. So it wanted to understand not just how they define personal values, but we also wanted to understand how they can identify career-specific competencies and how these decision-making processes take place based on personal values. On a year-to-year basis, there is something that we do which is not entirely theme-based to the conference, where we try to also understand effective intervention periods for counselors. Uh, my presenters here. So, sorry, I'm Ratish, by the way, and that's Professor Sharaka Shah from Flame University. Uh, I think the rain is so sometimes disorienting in Delhi, it just stops everything in its track. But we also wanted to, coming back to the presentation, we also wanted to understand what are effective counseling intervention periods. When do we start counseling students? The usual practice is that we start when they're in high school, but we got contradictory results to that in our surveys. At least conversations start much earlier, and but that's not entirely implemented in schools. And the final thing is an effective application process. This is more pertaining to what students feel when they're applying to universities and what parts of that process is not actually helping them out or is feeling a little bit difficult to sort of manage. So yeah, so the purpose was again to understand AI tools on the impact of AI tools and to understand if there is a shift towards technology-based competency development, um, and also sort of emphasizing skill acquisition and personal growth over a period of time. Um, Also, we wanted to explore student values such as passion and purpose, because these terms get thrown around quite a bit, especially in this day and age of social media, where you see a lot of people saying that I followed my passion, but does that necessarily mean that that translates into a career, or important factors that we may need to consider while actually doing career counseling? We also wanted to, like I said, understand optimal intervention periods so that we can guide students accordingly and determine ideal application timelines as well. And most importantly, we wanted to understand if there is a shift from competition towards competencies in relation to career counseling. Sorry. So yeah, just to give you an idea of the sample, we conducted a purposive and snowball sampling technique. Purposive would be that we knew that we wanted to target counselors and students, so we were very purposive in the way we wanted to do that. We wanted to conduct the survey. And snowball sampling technique essentially means that if we know there is an established counselor that will fill the survey, then we ask them to ask their colleagues, their friends to also fill the survey within the education field. Just to give you a demographic idea of the survey and the scale of the survey, there were counselors from 42 countries across 6 continents that participated in the survey. From students, we had around 56 countries from 6 continents as well. Just to give you a little bit of a sample description of the gender, so 55% males and 43% females and students. 55% females and 43% males in students, and something that we already sort of know is that female representation within counselors is significantly higher than males, and something that also corroborates this information is our survey. So what was the sample data collection process? Well, IC3 Institute has a very strong network through our programs, through our regional forums, through the IC3 conference. We wanted to tap into that network and ask them to fill this survey to get us these insights that can help us not only improve our understanding of counseling as a profession, but also help us, IC3, improve our program so that we can expand the sort of base that counselors have currently. We collected the data from students knowing that we don't actually work with students, but they are the end beneficiaries of our programs. We actually conducted the survey in a way where school educators were asked to ask the students to fill the survey. We also got an approval from an institutional review board at Flame, so that because we were serving this, providing the survey to minors, so we wanted to be sure that there is nothing that can be scrutinized in the survey essentially. The survey was open for about 2 months. We only received, this is the sample that we took. There was a higher number of sample, but we only took completed responses. And the response rate for students was 63%, and for counselors it was 52%. We also conducted a pilot survey to understand if the length of the survey is fine, if the questions are fine. So we did that with 10 students and 10 counselors, and that was at random. We had 48 statement questions that the students had to fill, and 40 for counselors. They were logic based, so they were total 48. But if you were, let's say, a student from grade 9th or 10th, you will have a different set of questions. And if you're a student from 11th and 12th, you would have a different set of questions. And most of the responses that we took were on the Likert scale, which is strongly agree to strongly disagree. So that's a scale of 1 to 5. We also had yes, no, not sure as a possible option. So it was a very simple data point that we were trying to collect. Now coming directly into the insights, I think something that we asked the counselors was, do they think artificial intelligence tools can actually help students gain a higher level of understanding of personalized guidance? And 73% agreed to that they do believe students can actually receive a lot of good guidance from artificial intelligence tools, be it if it's used properly. 60% of the counselors also actively embed AI tools within their practices. So that not only links to ChatGPT, but if you are using plagiarism checkers, all of those are artificial intelligence tools that counselors are using to understand and to improve their processes. They do it in their routine tasks. I think that the administrative workload reduces because they're using this. And this is something that I also do to I always call ChatGPT my underpaid intern. Because it's working constantly and it's working overtime, but it really does help with all administrative tasks. But there is a substantial adoption rate of these tools within their practices. And 63% of the counselors also acknowledge that, like I said, that diminishes their administrative burden. There is an operational advantage in embedding artificial intelligence tools within practices that counselors are taking place. ChatGPT is the most promising. It's the most accessible tool as well. You can use it for free at a very high level. If you use the premium version, that also gives you a lot of space to work with large sets of data, large sets of administrative work. But most importantly, students thought that uh, they have access to AI tools and they use it for career research and university research. Um, as if you know, if you are using or guiding students, if you ask them to figure out which universities they should be applying to, apart from the prestige ones, they may not know the ones that actually can suit them better. So artificial intelligence tool is actually helping them not only with university research, but also understanding the new kinds of careers that exist in the space right now. Uh, there is uncertainty surrounding the accessibility of these resources. There just needs to be better information dissemination for these tools. If we have, how many of us use artificial intelligence tools in any way or form? Do we understand what bias means in artificial intelligence tools, or something called hallucination, where artificial intelligence tools can give you information which does not actually exist? So it's important that we also bring them towards this sort of understanding of how these resources can work and whether this information that they're receiving is actually helpful or not. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see very clearly, but apart from career research and university research, writing essays, a large part of their work, if they're doing that, they also use help from ChatGPT, Bard, Gemini now, for writing essays. Subject and major selection as well. If you're in a liberal arts program, sometimes it can be difficult if you have, let's say, at Flame, there are 300 combinations of majors and minors that you can take. That could be very confusing for you to sort of figure out which one to do. And resume writing. Nobody knows what the perfect resume looks like. But we do know that there are certain important points, and artificial intelligence tools can actually help you build a really, really good resume if you know how to use it correctly. ChatGPT has clearly a big advantage over other artificial intelligence tools, and that's possibly because or down to marketing of the tool itself, uh, and and just the accessibility and ease of use as well. Plagiarism checker, resume checkers, Bard, Dali, all of these are other tools that are used as well. So we just need to also identify what kind of tools exist and how do we integrate that within not just the students' counseling, or sorry, career practices, but also counselors as well. So I'll just hand over the mic to my fellow reportee, Shalaka Shah.
A very good morning. I'm Dr. Shalaka Shah, Assistant Professor of Psychology from Flame University, and extremely honored and proud to be associated with ICE3 for this amazing report that we have created. We find it amazing, and we have to find it amazing so that you can also maybe find it amazing, right? So I just want to, start with a positive note. As Ratish already, clarified the introduction and also the objectives, and he explained one of the thematic insights in the area of AI. We have three more themes, and I'm going to talk about the personal values in career decision making. So what happens usually in career counseling, and I think the IC3 movement is about changing that paradigm, is pure matchmaking, right? We don't want careers to be just match made based on some age old norms. We want to involve students' values, students' personal strengths, their passion, and the whole idea of having meaningful careers. Considering Flame is the pioneer of liberal education in India, I think it's very, very important for us to go beyond the conventional combinations that we have, and when we are helping students choose their careers, that their careers are based on the four pillars, and these are the four pillars that we have tried to sort of assess in this survey. The first one, of course, we call it personal values. You also see passion, you see interest, and you see aptitude, right? These are extremely important aspects to be considered when we are guiding students to choose their careers. Before I delve into this topic, I think we all are on the same page as counselors. I mean, I'm a trained counseling psychologist, but also as career counselors, it's very important to know that we can't advise students to take any career decisions. Our role as career counselors is to facilitate the process so that students can come to a decision with the help of other stakeholders. We are doing just a small part. Their parents' professions, their teachers, their mentors. There are so many other people who also play a vital role, especially in the Indian culture when it comes to career decision making, right? So I just want all of us to be on the same page when we are saying that when we facilitate the career decision making process, these are the things that we need to keep in mind. So if you see the graphs, we have responses from the counselors and the students. And as Ratish already mentioned, the methodology, the important aspect is that some questions, the same questions we have asked the counselors and students as well, to get a kind of, a dual perspective about the same issue. So that's why you see here in the graphs, the numbers that talk about the opinions of the counselors and the students. So what we found in the report is that 83% of counselors and 81% of students indicated personal values as highly significant in making career decisions. And just to reiterate, because some members just joined right now, when we talk about personal values, we are talking about meaningfulness, we are talking about purpose, we are talking about passion, we are talking about aptitude, and we are talking about the interest. Most of the times, looking at the grades, we very quickly suggest that, okay, if you have this kind of percentage, please opt for sciences, or please opt for arts, or please opt for other fields. We don't necessarily take into consideration the interest of the child as well. Aptitude is always there. Most children that we are dealing with, especially in the IC3 movement, are sort of privileged students, right? They have all the resources, they have good support from parents. There are mechanisms wherein we are sort of supporting the students. So I think aptitude is something that is usually there. It's also important to consider the interest part, right? So that, because if there's no interest, there's going to be no passion. And most of us sitting over here have degrees in another field, and right now we're working in another field, right? Because most of our careers were influenced by our parents, by our mentors, or based on what women fancy we had at that age. But now when you realize that, there's scope in some other field, you end up changing that, and that's fine. What I'm trying to say is, when it comes with these children, the ones that we are supporting, if we can already understand their interest and passion and their values, this would help in better decision making, right? We also found out that career counseling sessions were found to be useful by the students, wherein they thought that they assist in understanding themselves and their own beliefs about decision making, right? So we also wanted to tap a bit on the self-awareness aspect of the students. We were not, successful in doing this on a large scale, considering the simplicity of the survey. But we thought at some point of time, do the students know that they have to access their own beliefs? They also have to see, okay, what is it that I want? Right? And some students can articulate that really well, but some students can't articulate that. And that is exactly what career counselor's role is, to help the student understand their own beliefs and be able to articulate. And I think confusion is great. We don't want absolute clarity, because if you have absolute clarity, then you're also not broadening your horizons. I think all confusion is good at the beginning, because that helps you to explore, that helps you to evaluate, that helps you to understand the consequences of your decisions. Right? So a fraction of students, of course, and a fraction of counselors also face challenges in understanding the personal values and basing the career decisions on them. Right? So personal values, again, passion, aptitude, interest, and purpose. And if you ask some students, they are like, I don't know what I want to do later on. And I think that's fine, because we know that it is an exploratory process. What's important is to also understand what you're not understanding. In the sense, you should know things that you're not aware of, and maybe list them down and then take help to get more knowledge about that. So 88% of counselors reported the capability of guiding students based on their interests and aptitude, which is very, very promising. And I think in that sense, IC3 movement is in the right direction, because this means that the student counselors do feel that, they are considering students' interests and aptitude while helping them make career choices. And they also acknowledge the importance of aligning both the aptitude and passion when choosing a career. right? So just a word of caution, this is a self-report, right? So we are assuming that the counselors and students are giving us their honest opinions. If we do, focus group discussions, or if we interview them, maybe more granular information and more granular understanding would be possible. But considering the outreach, we could not conduct the interview. So let's assume that the numbers that we see here are true. And it's quite a promising thing to also see in the report that most counselors are able to include the passion and purpose and the other personal values in decision making. And 82% students reported that aligning career choices with interest and aptitude is necessary. Right? For them, we didn't ask because, of course, they're still in the process of decision making, but they understood, or they can very clearly agree to us saying that, yes, it should be a combination of aptitude and interest, which is important because counseling as a process would require a good dynamic between the counselor and counselee, right? So if we have students who also have the understanding of the interest and aptitude and the combination to be considered in the decision making, I think that's a great thing. We also try to do a content analysis based on the qualitative responses that the counselors gave, because considering the theme for this year's conference from competition to competence, we thought we should first understand what competencies mean to the counselors, or how do they perceive those. Right. So you see the results of the content analysis here, where most counselors thought of competencies as a combination of skills, abilities, knowledge, and experience that an individual has. Right? And then to the right hand side, you see, for example, performance, career, application of these components. So these are the further application of competencies as seen by the sample. Right? So, for example, competence, according to these counselors, if you see the number 64, this is a frequency analysis wherein we have tried to also have a hierarchy in understanding how competency is seen as a strong connection with performance. So competency is not just having knowledge. Competency is not just saying, okay, I think I'm able to do that. That is important because that's self-efficacy. When we talk in the psychology terms, it's the belief that you are able to do that. You definitely need that, but that is not competency. So competency ultimately is measured through performance, right? And I think most of us will agree we are in the school setting, and that's why we have assessments. That's why we have continuous assessment. That's why we have evaluation for all the programs that we conduct. The second aspect for the competencies was the innate attributes, right? Innate attributes meaning something that you're born with, something that is not a result of the interaction between you and your social environment, but something that is innate. Like how some kids have an aptitude for music naturally. And you wonder, oh my God, in our 3 generations, no one has any connection with music. I don't know from where this chap has this aptitude, right? So that's innate. It's something very, very unique to the individual. So in that case, aptitude, interest, purpose, and meaning, the personal values that we tried to incorporate in this survey were seen as innate abilities. And that, in fact, reiterates the importance of including these personal values in the process of decision making. Right? And of course, being competent includes having aptitude, interest, and a combination of your personal values. And the third aspect is specific skills. So the counselors also saw competencies as specific skills. So the aspect of skill development, skills that can be mapped towards job orientation, or competencies that can empower students to have flourishing careers. That perspective was also mentioned. What is important to also understand is that career choices can be based on students' knowledge, competencies, skills, innate attributes, and personal values such as purpose, meaning, and interest. Right? So what we came to know from this survey is that competency is a multifaceted concept. Many times competencies are skill and skills are used synonymously, which is wrong because skills are incorporated within competencies. So how do you define a competency? Competency is something that involves your knowledge, skills, abilities, and right attitude. Right? And skills are something that you can also display in, let's say, normal conditions when you are efficient. Competencies are required for problem solving. Competencies are required for critical thinking. Problem solving competencies are required in, sort of being efficient in difficult conditions, unforeseen circumstances. Right. So what we are looking at is not just skill development, but having a paradigm shift from competition to competencies, because competition is going to focus more on whether I'm better than you, whether my aptitude is more suitable than your aptitude. I think with competencies, we are trying to say that yes, all these aspects are important, but ultimately, how you use your knowledge in the real situation, that is going to define whether you're a competent person or not. Right? Very quickly about the whole idea of competition. So we wanted to ask the career counselors also their idea of what is competition. And I was so glad, and I'm sure Ratish would agree, we were so glad to see that competition is not viewed in a very, very healthy way, because they highlighted, in fact, almost more than 50 people highlighted the unhealthy nature of competition and how it puts further pressure on children to perform, and then the natural performers have to face a lot of issues. Right, so here you can see that competencies were seen in the light of opportunities. So there was a competition for achievement, there was a competition for better performance. Competition Another positive aspect was competition was seen as a way of self-growth. So if you compete with yourself, okay, that would lead to better growth and that would lead to better decision making. A more balanced view of competition was called for. That's also one of the conclusions of the report, that if you have competition, it has to be healthy. You have to understand the implications of that and use that to fuel your passion further and not let it pull you down in any way. Competition also means aiming for success. Competition meant developing skills and abilities for success, and of course related to resources. So there's a competition for available resources to improve oneself. Right, so you see these different perceptions of competition, and this helped us to have an overall understanding or a holistic understanding of what the responses were. So in conclusion, deteriorating mental well-being of students is a result of unhealthy competition. This is what some counselors mentioned. Only constructive competition should be promoted and advocated for a balanced approach to competition. And healthy competition is vital for success and accomplishments and can aid in making informed career decisions. We are not talking about any career decisions. We're talking about informed career decisions, meaning at any age, if the child is taking a decision, the child is able to justify why this decision makes sense to the child, right? Of course, as adults, it's expected that we can justify decisions, which in reality we can't, but that's an expectation. But especially with children, I think informed decision making plays a very, very important role. One last part, and then maybe I will hand it over to Ratish again. This, I think, is extremely, extremely important. Please, everyone, take photos and share in all your groups and share it to your school leadership, your higher education leadership, I don't know, to the ministry, I don't know, wherever possible. Because this is your voice that we have tried to bring into light. These are the areas of professional development for career counselors, right? I'm sure most of the organizations are aware of this, but again, any policy is great on paper, but when it comes to implementation, every policy has its own challenges. But what the counselors expected is basically their own skill set development. Right? They talked about professional and personal development. So trainings was also something that was mentioned. For counselors, they feel that continuous professional and personal development is important because it's very difficult to to come down to the level of students and understand their needs and cope up with these changing careers and the changing trends of careers. So of course they asked for more conferences and workshops and industry connect and university connect. I think university connect is still quite popular, but industry connect is something that that needs to be prioritized, because if you don't speak to industry people, how will you understand what is the industry need? Right? And then how will you be able to align the kind of careers, the kind of skill development programs that you have in your schools or your colleges or any other institutes? So I think the industry connect is a very, very important aspect. Career counseling skills certifications. because also when we were networking yesterday, we came across a lot of counselors, because when they hear psychology, they of course want to discuss about psychometry and, using standardized tests. And they said that we may not understand all the jargon that you have because we are not trained psychologists, but we need to know at what point of time we hand over the case to someone else. Are there any markers? Are there any indicators? Are there any ways wherein we can understand that, okay, I don't think this I can handle this. I need to look for, a good recommendation for this student. So I think there's a lot of scope to develop trainings around the certifications and understanding the human psychology in general. And I'm sure most of you are aware of that based on your experience, but formal training in this regard would definitely help. And keeping abreast with current admission and career trends. Like, where do I get all the data that I want for this year? Right? I do have some sort of forums that I follow, but can there be like a common, a commonplace platform wherein career counselors can log in and get this data, and this data is continuously updated, and that's why we have this recommendation also for the university, I mean for the government, to have sort of digital libraries, digital archives, places where counselors can get this information. And the last point from my end, career specific training for application and admission processes. So what happens is, and this, in fact, this suggestion came from my colleague here, Pachi Navathe. She's also worked with me on this report. She's a clinical psychologist and a school counselor for more than 15 years. What happens is you have a formula, right? You have a formula. You say, okay, this aptitude, this career, this entrance exam, this coaching class, these are the fees, start now. Right? And we want to break these formulae. The reason is that human decisions can't be based on a formula. I mean, thanks to the AI tools, they are supportive to us, but we should never give them an upper hand. Right? I mean, a software cannot decide who I should marry, right? A software can't decide what career I should choose. It can definitely support me. So my point is that it's very important that we have this clear idea of what kind of processes, what are the flexible options, right? You should always be able to give more options and also help the student to understand the implications of choosing these options. Yes, over to Ratish, where he will talk about counseling as a profession. Again, amazing insights here. Over to you.
Thank you, Shalaka. So, we were discussing professional development that counselors want. So we also wanted to ask, where do they struggle within their workloads, and what are the things that actually cause them concerns? And among many of us would be counselors, so we did a very, very in-depth sort of understanding of what those areas could look like. Those simple ones are the basic ones, from parental pressures to managing their expectations, to managing student expectations, students not adhering to timelines, but also the fact that they lack technical training. A lot of us stumble into counseling sometimes. It's not a career choice that we sometimes make. So that lack of technical training or lack of resources for us to develop further to become more competent counselors does not exist. Coordination and support from other departments. Sometimes you're the lone warrior as a counselor, and you have some 200, 300 students that you have to manage. So sometimes that can get really, really difficult. Lack of reliable information, that's where AI tools can come in. But obviously, like Shalaka said, that you need to add your human element into it. You have to figure out whether certain pieces of information make sense or not, and obviously keeping in mind hallucination and bias within these tools. But lack of reliable information is also something that can be a hindrance. Lack of adequate support from school leadership is also something that, when you are in an application timeline period where your 12th students are applying, and if you're a school with more than 300, 400 students, and you're the only reliable piece of information for applications, then it can become very difficult. So school leadership needs to step in and provide that support, and I think counselors also sort of felt that. So we discussed what kind of professional development opportunities counselors take part in. We also asked them if, so professional conferences, which we're doing right now, magazines, publication, peer-to-peer learning, industry interactions, or university workshops are extremely important. So if we are going to support counselors further, we need to be able to do this on not just the IC3 conference, but many other conferences as well. And looking at beyond counseling, you can have, not trying to publicize any other conference, but skill-based conferences or anything else as well. We have to understand counseling not just as an application-based process, but also a holistic process which can involve understanding how to acquire skills, how to figure out careers, and how to figure out how to build your personal values and aptitudes. But something that we also realize is that 15% of the counselors don't interact with any of these things. We need to identify them. We need to be able to provide them the opportunity and the resources to actually go, if not professional conferences, but then subscription to magazines. If not that, then peer-to-peer learning, university workshops. And these are all not very resource-intensive things that we can do for professional development. So something that, we can take back, not just as counselors, but as school leaders as well. And that can be really, really helpful for us. Something that we also wanted to understand is, and this was not, so the questions, the way we framed it was, we wanted to first understand when counseling conversations start with students and when those conversations take place in school and how structured they are. So once we asked students, they said that maximum, nearly half of them said that they start counseling conversations between the ages of 12 to 14. 12 to 14 would be uh, between grades 6th, 7th, 8th, right? As you can see, a large part of, so G and I is group and individual, you'll see most of it is primarily on a need-to-need basis. And we are doing it way more after grade 11th and grade 12th than in grade 9th and 10th. So conversations at home are starting early, but the support so that they are not confused takes place much later in school. So there is a gap, and we need to be able to fill that gap as career counselors. The optimal period that we've realized is grade 6 to 8. And that's important for us to realize. We don't need to give them colleges, we don't need to give them careers, but we need to be able to, let's say, build their competencies, help them understand where their interests may lie, and help them understand the world of work, because it is constantly evolving. The half-life of skills is reduced from 10 to 5 now to, it's going to reduce further. In the World Economic Forum from 2015 till 2025, in the period of 10 years, the top 10 most important skills from 2015, only 2 of them have survived into 2025. So this constant evolution in the world of work, we need to figure out how do we help students get apprised with that as well. This is consistent with the student data. We also connected previous research that other researchers have done in our literature review, so that we can substantiate our answers a little bit, because it was a very simple survey that we had conducted. But what we are realizing more and more, and you'll see it in the report, which is accessible on the research and publications of IC3 Institute, that initiating career-related conversations is early on is very beneficial for students, and we need to start that now. Effective application processes, and this is something if we have any university delegates, but this is something that both counselors and students, we ask them, what are the things that can help you make application process a little bit more effective, because that adds to the stress. I worked as a counselor and you're scrambling for information. What do we need? Do we need, this particular test that we have to do? Where do we, how much score do we require if you're applying to US universities? Our information's maybe not sometimes always there. And sometimes applications can be, so a large majority of counselors who have to work with, let's say, 200 students, if you have a very lengthy application form, it becomes difficult for them to do it with 200 students. That's difficult for them to definitely manage. They're not able to provide, or universities are not able to provide personalized feedback. Something that I realized when you're and a process that Oxford and Cambridge is that if you apply and you get rejected, you get sent a PDF saying this is why we rejected you and this is why we accepted you. What that does is it helps the student understand, okay, this is where I lacked. But if you apply to a certain university and don't get in, then it can make you feel like, okay, maybe I don't know why I didn't get accepted. And that can sort of, reduce confidence in a student, and that's something that we may want to avoid. Other factors is inconsistent communication from universities, limited guidance on supplemental materials, and multiple essays. everyone who's done a common app essay understands I don't know how to guide a student on a common app essay. But not just a common app essay, if you go to universities in India as well, a lot of universities have taken this approach of understanding a student's aptitude through essays rather than an entrance test. So that can be sometimes very difficult to manage. There is a need to streamline these processes, increase transparency, and improve responsiveness in application processes. Universities are slowly moving towards that with multiple country representatives or regional representatives, but that needs to become better sooner rather than later. Um, yeah, and while making decisions, university rankings, course recognition, job placement statistics, and post-graduation salaries, I think we all sort of know this in our hearts that these are the statistics that students are looking for. I think when we're looking at university rankings, we have to see, okay, which university ranking system should we actually look at before asking students to apply to a particular university. So those things can also help us understand. In India, for example, NIRF exists, but we don't know that. If you were to go to on QS rankings, there would be no Indian universities in the first maybe 100, 150 universities list. So we just need to understand what kind of ranking system also to explain to them. Yeah. Clear guidance and data is something that helps students, because when they have that conversation with parents, they need to go back with numbers. There is a quantitative aspect which parents understand way better. So giving them the data is very important. That can give, they'll find value through it in clear guidance, workshops, online tools, parental engagement, and stress reduction sessions. Supremely important. I also am part of the Averting Student Suicide Task Force with the IC3 Institute, where we're tracking student suicides, and it does not look pretty in India at all. So these are things that we have to figure out for students so that they are not crumbling under the pressure of applications and careers. Coming eventually to conclusions, we understand that there is obvious advantages of AI tools. We need to enhance the accessibility and awareness of these resources. Healthy competition plays a significant role in career choice and related achievements. We need to be able to align particular individual strengths, skills, and abilities with their career paths, and to understand whether they're well suited for their roles as well. Um, their integration of early, consistent, structured counseling is very, very, very important. Like I said, it doesn't need to be a serious conversation, but it needs to be geared towards students who are 12, 13, 14, understanding what's going to come in the next 3 to 4 years of their lives. Supremely important to maximize the advantages of counseling, and it becomes easier to work with students once they're 16, 17 if you have helped them throughout the ages of 13, 14, 15. Yeah. A holistic counseling curriculum, this is something that still is very lacking in a lot of schools. It doesn't need to be a structured timetable with breaks and recess and periods, but it definitely needs to be something which is structured so that at grade 6th we are doing this, grade 7th we're doing this, and we're not trying to understand the competency of students when we are helping them apply in grade 12th. We need to know what their competencies are. We need to be able to figure out that solution for them, or at least have multiple possible solutions so that they are not feeling like they're boxed into a particular decision. And transparency is extremely important. I think the link between schools and universities is supremely important. They are doing the same thing. They're providing a level of education and skills to students so that they become happy workers when they go into the world of work. And that connection is sometimes lacking. There's this hands-off approach once a student qualifies from school and goes into university, and the universities are only looking at a very few merit-based numbers, and sometimes that lack of clarity can be difficult, and a lot of colleges are and universities are changing that. But that well-organized support, extensive online materials, efficient, transparent, and responsive universities and schools can really, that is a difficult transition. I took a gap year because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I was planning to become a chartered accountant, and I had 1.5 out of 100 in maths. So definitely not a career I should have been taking. So that gap exists, and we really need to be able to figure out how to sort of improve that. So we have a few recommendations for school leaders. If we have any, you know, we have counselors. We need to train them. We need to make them qualified. Uh, One of the three principles that IC3 functions on is sensitize, elevate, and develop the profession. So we do definitely need to develop counselors. They're supremely important resources, and as we move into the world of artificial intelligence, is not going to take your jobs. If you don't know how to use artificial intelligence, you are going to find yourself out of a job. So you need to just be digitally competent as well at that time, and school leaders have a big responsibility in sort of putting that out. Alumni engagement is extremely important. Building channels across batches, 10 years, 15 years in the past as well, can help students understand what a career path looks like. And usually students listen to their peers way more, or understand their logic way more than sometimes counselors, teachers, and students and school leaders. Uh, Comprehensive counseling programs are supremely important. We definitely need to create that. There are multiple sessions in this conference as well, which help you understand how to build that out. So do definitely catch those. And reducing student to counselor ratio, you don't need to go and hire a counselor, but if you have staff working in administrative roles, they can be trained to become counselors. So not just through the IC3 programs, there are various programs that are available online that we can access. And subject matter training, more and more it's not siloed into science, commerce, and math and humanities. It's now interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. To be able to understand how one particular field and discipline links to another is going to be supremely important. So building that subject matter training, or providing that subject matter training and expertise, is going to be supremely important. For career counselors, start advocating for career education. I think you are the voices, you are the ones that suffer the most in this process of a lack of structure within counseling. Start advocating for career education as a mainstay and a core function of schools. Technology integration, I think, very important for us to start uh, becoming being one with technology more and more. Uh, and holistic approach in career guidance, starting early, understanding that there is not a set formula, like Shalaka was saying, to getting careers, but just understanding it from all lenses and all sort of ways, so that we're providing that properly. For universities and higher education, I'll leave this to Shalaka.
Thank you. This is just to also break the monotony, not listening to the same speaker for a longer time. So yes, for universities and higher education institutions, we recommend support for students in transition. And when I say students in transition, meaning exactly the students that we are dealing with, who are sort of moving from high secondary or junior colleges to higher education institutions. So we have a lot of opportunities when it comes to summer schools, right? Like at Flame, for example, we have summer immersion program wherein we are giving a glimpse to the students. They come and stay on the campus for 10 days. They understand what liberal education is. They understand what university life is. So such kind of programs should be recommended by the universities. They should, have these kind of programs and allow students from all the social strata to come and participate, so that this can serve as a base to understand whether a specific field is for you or not, right? The second is data driven decision making. Focusing on trends, focusing on data, and we have massive data coming from most of the websites, from different platforms, through AI tools, to have decisions based on not only our previous experiences, the university trends, but have decision making based on the real data. I think universities and higher education institutions should invest in gathering this data, involve researchers to analyze this data, and then make informed decisions. The next one is, of course, for the government and education policy. How can we leave a chance to say anything to the government after working on this report for a year? So first thing I think is universal access to career counseling. And here I think IC3 movement is already doing, a great a great job because we want career counseling to reach every school. And when I say every school, I also mean the rural areas, okay, the underprivileged students, the progressive schools, right? So for now, we have sort of started this kind of, this endeavor, but it should reach to each and every student. Use of technology and data. So of course, the digital competence and digital training is for every level, right? For schools, but then schools will sort of mandate it once it comes from the government, and we all wait for those GRs, and we all wait for those government, regulations, that one letter, okay, that can, not make the principals, force the training, but it's a government mandate, so everyone has to do that, right? So the government has to, prioritize technology and data, and also let it percolate to the schools and higher education institutions. Digital literacy training and evaluation and feedback mechanisms, right? So creating feedback loops wherein students and the beneficiaries, okay, are also providing feedback to the givers, to the trainers, to the counselors, so that we can keep making changes in our counseling deliveries. It's very important, otherwise we just feel that yes, I'm doing the best, but I mean the audience should say that okay, you are doing the best. So I think creating feedback loops is the most important part. I think we are almost done, and we still have 3-4 minutes. Any questions from the audience? Okay. The first, you mean the last, this one? No. Okay. Yeah, we will be. Is there a quicker way to go back? Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a purposive and snowballing technique that we use. Surveys, essentially online surveys, which are purposive and snowballing in technique.
Use the mic.
Sorry. Hello? Yeah. So the report is also accessible on the IC3 Institute Research and Publication, where we do detail out what the methodology is, sample description, all of those things. But on a very quick level, it's an online survey that we administer that gets sent out to the IC3 network of counselors. And then they share it forward with the students, and they also share it forward with their colleagues. So it's purposive in the sense that we give it to counselors to give it to students and other counselors, and that becomes then the snowballing part of it.
So can you please suggest AI tools we can implement in schools?
Implement in schools, I think there's a lot of benefit in understanding how ChatGPT works on a very, it's instrumental, I think. It has helped me. I develop curriculum as well because I'm an academic manager at the institute for our programs. Just having a conversation with ChatGPT, giving it good examples, bad examples, and figuring out how that works. It's obviously you have your AI plagiarism checkers, resume checkers that you can use, which I think you may already do. But like on a very basic level, large language models is where the game is at for schools to figure out.
I just want to reframe my question in the sense of in my school we are using smart boards for every kids.
Okay.
The primary we are not using because the screen time will increase. So most of the students are visualized learning students. So they will catch through visualize. So my request is, do you have any kind of a site, then we can make some games for them to make easy, through the AI tools we can make it through. So
I mean, you can develop games through the AI tools, and then you can use softwares like Miro to develop it on a visual scale, so that students are able to do that. But it's never one tool that will give you all solutions. It's going to be 2 to 3 tools that you can use together to be able to figure that out.
I think we can take one question, and after the session, we anyway have networking time. We will be around, right? Be around, just not to discourage others. Yes.
I'm just wondering if you had considered enterprise building, entrepreneurship as a subset of, let's say, careers. When you have been doing the survey, I could see that, there is a reflection about jobs, about the salaries that jobs would get, about placements and all that, which is typically the well, let's say, walked route, right? So, but the newly emergent trends clearly dictate that job creation and entrepreneurship building could also be a significant insight into building careers and then see successful or purposeful spacement of life.
Right.
So was this considered in the survey or was it not considered in the survey? So I'm just curious.
So I can answer that question. So if you were to pick up the last year's report for Student Quest, there's an entire section on the role of entrepreneurship and the perception of entrepreneurship, not just by counselors but also by parents. The last year's survey was a tripartite survey with students, parents, and counselors. So what we understood in that, at least, was that the perception for entrepreneurship, there is a level of risk associated with it that sometimes parents and counselors are sort of uneasy to give that solution to students. But if you were to bring it back to this year's report, if the competency of that student, and if we can figure that out in terms of, let's say, the student is able to create student groups in school, is able to start ventures, which I see a lot of students do regularly, that competency then exists for them to be able to manage entrepreneurship. Do you have anything to add to that?
Just the thing that we in fact did not focus on any specific careers. Therefore, we did not include or exclude anything. We just kept it open this time because our focus was more on understanding in general about career making. But this is a great suggestion, I think, for the next time. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And especially innovation. Exactly. So that's why we said competencies is about critical thinking, creativity, innovation. Because if you just look at skills, skills are something that you do by default after a certain point of time. But competencies require you to keep adapting to the new aspects. So maybe in the next, report, we could also focus on specific emerging careers and then do a subset of understanding those trends also. So thank you for the suggestion. Correct. Correct.
It's very difficult to do that.
We can't.
We can't do that.
I mean, very honestly, we can't, and we shouldn't also, because that would just take away all the fun and the experience part, right? Like, and we want the next generations also to struggle a bit, because if you give everything in hand, they would forget the basic problem solving skills, right? I think the best part is to equip them.
Yeah.
To understand and to sort of empower them to come up with their own solutions. I think we are up with the time, right? Thank you very much for being a great audience and for your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And please do catch the report. It will be on the IC3 Institute Research and Publication website. There are many frameworks that we have established in the literature review as well. So that are international frameworks. So do definitely catch those as well. And there is an executive summary available at the IC3 booth if you just want to catch the major beats of the report as well. Thank you so much.